Okay, so I'm here today with Aimee Goodwin. She's a certified life coach, and I've got something in the way here. An emotional resilience trainer. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your educational background, and what you're doing now? You've got New Hope Wellness, right?
hmm hmm
And why you're doing it.
Sure. So I am, as you mentioned, a life coach and an emotional resilience trainer. I own New Hope Wellness here in Alexandria, Minnesota. The story of getting here is a rather long story, but many years ago was diagnosed with Lyme disease. But before I was diagnosed, I suffered with Lyme for 5 years undiagnosed. And so that was a whole journey in itself. And that is what brought me here to this place. And so here at New Hope, we treat chronic Lyme disease, and because we treat chronic Lyme disease, we do a few other things very well as well. We treat the immune system very well, we treat chronic pain very well, and we treat mental health really well. So I got into New Hope Wellness and realized that I really needed more education for the support that I was giving here. And so I went to get a life coach education. It took me a year to do that through the program through HCI. And then I went on through a Stanford University course in emotional resilience. It took me also a year to do that course. And that's really the course that just changed my whole life. It changed how I coached. It changed how I lived my life. It changed everything for me. And that is how through coaching and through running my own business and through really working with people and mastering these emotional resilience skills. That's where The Mountains We Climb, the book that I've recently published, came from. And it's just really what I love to do. I love to help people get to where they want to be. I meet people at a certain place, and usually when I meet them at that place, there's a place that they want to go. And getting somebody there and helping them break through old beliefs and learning to control anxiety, learning to control their mind and things like that. It's the most powerful thing. I consider it a great honor to be in the room with somebody who's doing that in their life, and something I'm really, really proud of. So yeah, we do a lot of things here at New Hope, but I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished here.
What's the most important thing you came out of from that emotional resilience course?
There was so many things. The most important thing that came out of that course for me, I think, was that we have the power to control our destinies. We have the power to control our minds. In fact, I was just talking about this with a client this morning who came in here. She was so excited to tell me, I've been working with her for a year now, and she was so excited to tell me that she had talked herself down from a panic attack. And we were just having this conversation that I get a lot of heat when I say, from people who have anxiety, when I say that people with anxiety, they have this illusion that they cannot control their mind because their mind has been in so control of their lives for so long that they don't think they can control it. But when I went through this emotional resilience course and I learned so many wonderful tools that help us reset our minds, reset our brains, help us control our mindset, breathing, things that really address why we're having anxiety, getting to the root of things, calming down that nervous system, and working scientifically with how the body works with anxiety. Yes, it is possible to control the mind. And yes, it is so powerful. And I saw that manifest in my own life. I saw it manifest. I've seen it again and again in my patients' lives that come from all walks of life. There's so many people. I recently saw a statistic that said 70% of people are living in fight or flight. 70%. That's a devastating statistic, by the way, though I'm not surprised by it, by what I see in my office, but 70% of people are living with fight or flight. That means fight or flight is a reserved thing in our body. Like
Emergency.
that is supposed to be for emergencies, right? That is for tigers chasing me and I'm going to die, right? That's what
Yeah,
fight or flight is for. But 70% of Americans are living with that in fight or flight every day.
that's
And
incredible.
that answers so many questions about what is happening in society today. To take somebody, I have the great privilege of taking people who come into my office with anxiety, daily anxiety at an 8 or a 9 or a 10, and bringing them down to a 1 or a 2. Yes, it's possible. So I think that is probably one of the most powerful things that came from that. For so many things did, but that was one of the most powerful, was that we have control over our minds. We can control our lives and we can control our destinies. And even this problem, 70%, a problem that big, can be controlled by very basic emotional resilience skills that we are just out of tune with.
You know what? I just got a DNA test back and I was surprised because it said that I was genetically disposed to panic attacks. And
Really?
yeah, I've always felt like I was in total control. And I had to think back, well, is there any time that I didn't feel like that? I don't feel like that when I'm with the HOA board of directors. I'm in fight or flight all the time there. And used to be that when I spoke, that I'd get up to speak, and the very first time I got up to speak, and I was all excited about it because I had so much to share, and I had all these ladies sitting there listening, and they wanted to learn it. And I started shaking and sweating, and I didn't know where it was coming from, and that must be what it was. I never identified it except for maybe as a fear of speaking. And so
Mhm.
what I did was first I went back and I made it more so that I was focused on the audience. I let them do part of the work. It was more interactive. And then I went back and I did it over and over and over and over again. So now I don't get nervous about it at all. So if you put yourself in a fight or flight situation, prepared to do something different, is that a good way to deal with it?
Yeah, I think that's true. And again, it goes back to just tools, right? Maybe even just knowing that you have that you're like, okay, so I'm prepared for this. I just know I need a little extra prep because I get nervous in public speaking. Or, I tell a story in my book that I have, or that I read when I was researching. And this is a really great story. This was a story about a Marine, and he you know, he was in war, and he was in with his platoon, and he was driving, and they were attacked, and the vehicle that he was in exploded. And he was very, very injured. He would have lost his life, honestly, had he not kept his cool. But tells this story where he was laying on the ground. Many people were killed in this attack, and he was laying there fatally injured had he not acted for himself. And he remembered a tool, which was he remembered a breathing technique that somebody had taught him like years before, sitting in a class somewhere, that he had learned that seemed totally insignificant to him at the time. But when his brain was racing and he was super nervous, somehow he remembered this technique, and he had to breathe. And so he did that. He took the time in the middle of the chaos when he was literally bleeding to death and did his breathing technique, and that kept him calm enough to save several people around him, call for help and get people coming, tourniquet his own legs so he didn't bleed to death, and then he passed out. But all his doctors told him that if you wouldn't have kept
Yeah.
calm and you wouldn't have done that breathing, you would have died, and several people around you would have died too. So was he in a real emergency? Was he in an actual fight or flight situation? He was. But
Mhm.
even in an actual fight or flight situation, he was able to take a simple resilience tool of breathing and slowing down everything that was going 100 miles in his brain so that he could think clearly and act for himself. And that is the power of using tools of resilience.
Very good. Yeah, that's interesting. I took us off the subject, but so in your book, um, can you share, you called it The Mountains We Climb.
The mountains we climb.
Can
Yep.
you explain the metaphor with that?
Sure. Well, I spent a lot of time, I grew up in Idaho, not too far from the Teton Mountains. So we lived out in the country in Idaho, and kind of by the Snake River. We were about a half mile from the Snake River, maybe a little longer, and we had a beautiful view of the Teton Mountains. And so I did a lot of like church activities up in the mountains and things like that, and spent a lot of time out there. It's a lot of where my heart is a lot of the time. Even now that I live in Minnesota here, I'm often making trips back to Montana to see the mountains. But I often in life find myself, all my life, find myself think, well, having that comparing life to, well, this is just a mountain in the way right now, or this is just whatever, this is a hard path right now, but we're going to get over the mountain. And so when I was writing the book about the hard things that we overcome in life and tools to help us through that, The Mountains We Climb seemed to be a really natural title.
You had your own struggles. How do you use that? And I'm going to go one step further. How do you use the struggles that you had without focusing on yourself when you're working with clients?
Yeah. You mean if I'm currently struggling, or I
Your
guess
past struggles.
my past struggles? Well, I will say that I think because of some of my past struggles, those are some of the things that make me able to be the powerful coach that I am. Because, I recently had somebody ask me, well, are you just, I was doing the circuit interviews for my book, and I did a radio interview, and this guy asked me, well, are you just a Pollyanna of life then? Do you just go through life thinking life is great all the time? And
Yeah.
and I kind of I did laugh at him. And I said, anybody who knows me is going to laugh at that question when they hear this. And I said, the truth is, and this is the truth, and I think this is what makes me good at what I do, is that I'm actually pretty well acquainted with the darker things of life. I have struggled. I struggled with chronic Lyme for many years before I knew what my diagnosis was. I thought I was dying. I thought I would die before I knew what was killing me. That was very difficult. Even when I did have my diagnosis, it took me 2 years to recover from that. I was quite alone in that journey. I had a great support with my husband and my family, but I didn't know anyone else struggling with Lyme at the time. So I didn't really have a coach or anyone telling me, hey, you got this, keep going. This is the right thing to do. It was too new, and a lot of people just didn't know about it. So that was a huge struggle in my life. I had to really learn endurance. I had to learn faith. I had to really lean on some of my own resilience. We lost a daughter, and that was a soul-crushing trial as well. And so because I am acquainted with how dark life can be, I know that you can get out of that. I know you can build from there because I have done that. So you're going to have a really hard time convincing me going through it, any trial you're going through, that there's not light at the end of that, no matter how dark it is. And I think because I have that knowledge, that makes me a really powerful guide to anybody who's struggling.
So you instill hope, right?
Yeah. I really believe in hope. Hope saved me. And I talk about that in my book as well when I was first acquainted with hope. But I believe there's always something to be hopeful for, even if it's the teeniest, tiniest little spark of hope in the darkness. That can carry you. Hope can carry you. And I see that working with chronic Lyme patients. I see that working with mental health. I see that almost every day in my life. Hope is a powerhouse skill in emotional resilience.
So is there a big difference between the person who doesn't believe that they can overcome whatever it is that they're going through and the person who has hope?
Oh, yes, absolutely there is. And I see that working with chronically sick patients. The patients who, with Lyme for sure, like the patients who find something to be hopeful. And Lyme disease is hard. I don't know if you know much about Lyme disease, but it is a very devastating disease. It takes a life from you that you love, and it gives you back a life full of pain, full of misery, loneliness. People around you don't understand you. You look fine to them, so they have no idea what's going on inside your head or inside your body. It is a miserable disease. And the people who find something to cling to, the people who find something to be hopeful for, they fight harder, they fight longer, they heal faster. And there are people who don't heal because they don't think they are going to get better. Mindset is a massive, massive component in any kind of healing, whether it's healing from a disease or whether it's working on your anxiety, working on moving your life forward. Your mind and your mentality and your focus is a massive component.
The term resilience to the public, I mean, it's a new term, everybody came out with that and talked about it after 2020, but really it's been in medical studies and medical books and mental health all the time. Where do you think that everybody's getting resilience wrong?
Well, I think it's something everybody's looking for right now. I think 2020, I think we had problems as a society before 2020. And as somebody who was coaching before 2020 and is coaching after 2020 and went through all that, this is where this is coming from for me, my observation. We had problems as a society before 2020, but 2020 really brought that out in us. It really exposed us, I think, in a lot of ways as a society. And I think going through something so hard together, but not together, because, right, we were so kind of isolated from each other during that time. And there was a lot of there was political unrest during that time. It wasn't just COVID, it was a lot of other things that the world seemed to go mad. And I think we had to be resilient to get through that. And even those who were resilient came out of that really burnt and really fried. And in fact, I dubbed it post-COVID syndrome for a while because everybody was just even the toughest, right? The toughest amongst us, the most resilient. So I think the reason we're hearing more about it is because there's more people looking for it. There's more people feeling like they need it. And so it's maybe that pin word that we're all looking for. Like, and then I hear people say, I don't want to be resilient. I hate being resilient. I hate the world having to make me prove that I'm resilient.
Like
So
to just
yeah,
stay even.
yeah, exactly. But I think we all have a choice. We're here to learn. That's my take on the world. We're here to learn. We're here to learn. And some of the most horrible things that I've been through, some of my biggest challenges and struggles throughout my life, I am finally to the point where I wouldn't change those things because now I can see they have built me. And I think we all are here at different stages. Everybody's at different stages of that. If you would have asked me that 10 years ago, that would have not been my answer.
Mhm.
And so I think, again, I think that's just something we're all kind of just searching for peace. We're all searching for rest. We're searching for that word, that resilience, right? We're searching for a better way to get through. I think we're all experiencing a little bit of disconnect with social media and with our phones all the time. And I think it's just a time to reconnect and to really focus on the tools that we've gotten out of touch with.
Yeah. Self-care. Um,
Self-care.
yeah. How can we redefine that, or do we need to redefine it?
I do think we need to redefine it. In fact, I just did a video on this on my TikTok not too long ago. But we have so much focus on, often we go to the doctor, we have our annual checkups, we're checking our blood pressure, we're checking our blood sugar, we're making sure all of those things are intact, but we are not doing daily checks of how am I doing today? What about at the end of the week, just doing a little mental health assessment? On a scale of 1 to 10, how did I handle my stress this week? How tired and burnt out do I feel at the end of the week on a scale of 1 to 10? And how fulfilled do I feel in my life on a scale of 1 to 10? And if we're more towards the tens, being the worst, then maybe I should get some help with this. Maybe I need a coach. Maybe I need a therapist. Maybe I need to check in with somebody. I still think there's so many people that mental health isn't part of your health. And I wish we could change that idea for everybody, that our mental health is part of our health. It's just as dangerous if we have clogged arteries in our heart as it is if we don't have good mental health. If our mental health is good, if our self-care routine, right, is breathing and walking, spending self-time, making sure we're on our schedule, making sure we're self-assessing, making sure we're doing all the things, doing the work we need to do to be happy and, let things just be things and not the things that are blocking us all the time. That should be part of our health. That's how we're going to move forward and not have to even think about the word resilience. We won't be like, oh, I was so resilient with that problem. You'll just have gone through it because all of those things are already being done.
You know what? I found this new app, and you put your finger in front of it. It tells you what your heart rate is, This morning I put it on there. I had zero tension. I thought I'm going to do this
Nice.
at the
Good
beginning
job.
of the day. Zero tension. I had a little bit of stress, but I had zero tension. But you know what? Even looking at something like that, and because 2 years ago I tried another app, and I was sick. I'd gotten sick taking my mom to a dirty hospital, and I was really sick, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. But I had this new app, and it was telling me that I was over the sky with stress. And that was stress from being sick. It wasn't from, a wedding or a jailing or, anything that causes you stress. But knowing those things, I think, help a lot.
Yeah, creating an awareness. Be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I do feel kind of tense, or I do feel stressed out. I need to go for a walk, or I'm gonna sit down and do my breathing. Those are things that you'd be surprised how many people, when I first start working with them, have to set an alarm on their phone to remember to breathe.
Oh, yeah.
They
I
can't
do
even,
that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, don't make fun of those people. I
Oh,
do
I'm
that.
not
I do
making
it
fun.
twice a
I'm
day.
saying that's how busy people's lives are. That's how disconnected we are from our own stress in our body, is that I don't even have the own cue of, oh, I'm feeling stressed. I need to breathe. I have
Yeah,
to
I
set an
kind of have
alarm to
it
do that.
connected that when I get in the pool, I breathe. So, if you establish habits, I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's helpful. And that's something that any of our listeners can do with their customers is, teach them to maybe establish some habits to do that. I was thinking maybe if I wake up in the morning with no tension, maybe when I feel tense in the afternoon, I should take a nap. Then I can wake up with
Yeah.
no tension again.
Yeah, and some tension is it's gonna happen, right? It's not normal. I mean, we're not gonna dance through life and never feel stress. That's not gonna happen. We live in an imperfect world, and we're surrounded by imperfect people, and we're imperfect ourselves. But when you have a routine like that, when you are taking care of yourself, when you are doing some good basic tools just to keep your nervous system level, to keep you good assessing, then the stress in the world can go on and you can function just fine through the stress. So we're not changing the stress in the world, but we are changing the person walking through the world.
Well, and that's a good point too, because if you go back to 2020, there were some people that kind of floated through it and were okay on the other end of it, but there were other people that just were driven up the wall.
Yeah. Yes,
And
exactly.
then everybody was fighting and angry, and
Hmm.
it was messy.
It was very messy.
Yeah. And it's all in your response.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all really how well you are in your self-care with your mental health.
Yeah. So can you walk us through a moment either from the book or from your personal experience that captures the essence of emotional depth and authenticity that you can now teach others to do or to acquire?
I think it's kind of well, I'll just kind of go with what we were just talking about. One of the things, one of the really most powerful things is that when we're working on emotional resilience, when we're working to calm somebody, to get them healed and healthy where they are, they move through the world differently. And I really believe that we change the world one person at a time when we do that. And I'll give you a really powerful example of this. I had somebody approach me one time and they were really angry about something, and they very aggressively, and this wasn't that long ago, very aggressively approached me and were like in my face, upset. And I was able to, whoa, take a step back. Instead of reacting exactly back with them, matching their passion for passion, I was able to take a step back. I stayed calm through that whole conversation. I was able to get my points across. I was able to calm that person, and I was able to get out of that, conversation, that aggressive conversation, without a fight, without a big altercation or anything like that. And 20 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. 20 years ago, for me, when I was an unhealed person, when I wasn't using these resilient skills, when I was a very reactive person, that would have been a fight. And that would have been a fight, knockout, drag out fight, because of who that person was and what that person was throwing at me. What changed in that situation? That person didn't change. That person in my life showed up exactly the way they always do. What changed? I changed because I had done the healing, because I had learned the tools. My reactiveness to that person changed. That person didn't change. That person showed up the same. I showed up differently because I'd done the work. And that is the power of doing your own work, of mastering your skills and moving through life differently. You have a choice how you move through life after that. And that's very, very powerful.
You have a book, and it is called The Mountains We Climb. Where can we get that?
So The Mountains We Climb is available on Amazon right now. And I think you can order it honestly in any bookstore at this point. You should be able to go into your bookstore and order it as well. But available on Amazon.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it, and I think we've all learned a lot. I think that it would be helpful to see you or to be somebody that was seen for something like this, because you do change lives, don't you?
Yeah, I really do. And I say that humbly, and my life has been changed by people like me too, and with these skills. And so I just think I'm one of those people. It's the same with the Lyme Clinic. Like a lot of people just go on in Lyme and they never want to hear about it again. They never want to see about it again because it's so difficult. But just like that, just like in my life, just like with resilience, I can't get somewhere and overcome something and not turn around and see who needs help with that. And I think we live in a world right now where a lot of people need help. Again, going back to that statistic, 70% of people in fight or flight. I know skills that help people get out of that. What kind of person am I if I don't teach those to people? So I like, again, I really consider that an honor to sit in the room with people while they are healing and learning and doing their work so that they can move through the world differently as well.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.